Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at Exodus chapter 3, the place where Moses meets God, in our continuing study of the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 3, verse 1, Now Moses was pasturing the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. We'd been introduced to him in the previous chapter. And he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. That name Horeb means desolation, and I've been there to the traditional site. I have no reason to doubt that that's the actual site. And it is a bit desolate. There's not a lot. There's scrub brush and there's things for sheep to eat, because sheep can eat. They can find things to eat in the most desolate places. But it's out in the wilderness. It's in the desert. Looking at a map of Sinai. Notice Midian is to the east, but we're told that they had gone to the west side of that wilderness, which would put you in the Sinai. It's on the other side of the what we call the Gulf of Aqaba, part of that Red Sea, and it's far removed from Egypt. Well, we read in verse 2, the angel of the Lord appeared to him. Now, the word angel just means messenger, and so there's a sense in which God used this type of messenger in a blazing fire from the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, yet the bush was not consumed. Now, Genesis chapter 3 had introduced us to this idea of fire, and not necessarily a bush, but a tree, and symbolizing life, symbolizing the presence of God, from which Adam and Eve were cast out. And so when we had last seen that at the end of Genesis chapter 3, it had been guarded by a cherub with a flaming sword. Here in Exodus chapter 3, we have the bush of the presence of God, and there's an angel of the Lord appearing in blazing fire. Back in Genesis chapter 3, the man and the woman were cast out of the garden because of their sin. Here in Exodus chapter 3, Moses is warned against drawing near and told to remove his sandals. And both of these accounts remind us of how Jesus came and died upon a tree in order to open the way for us to approach God. So Moses said, I must turn aside now and see this marvelous sight, not the fact that it was burning, but why the bush is not burned up. You know, you can set a bush on fire, and after a while it's going to be consumed, and there won't be anything except ash. And yet here was a bush that was burning, and yet it just continued to burn and wasn't consumed by it. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near here. Don't come near. Remove your sandals from your feet. Now, remember, back in Genesis chapter 3, we'd seen, they'd been cast out, they'd been removed. Here, likewise, there's a warning. Don't come near here. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you're standing is holy ground. This reminds us of Hebrews chapter 7, verse 25, where we're told that he, God, is able to save forever those who draw near to God through him, through Christ, since he always lives to make intercession for them. It's because of Christ that we can come near. But notice also that reference to holy ground. Holy ground. When we see the instructions of the tabernacle, we're going to be told that the priests going into the tabernacle are not to wear shoes, because that's holy ground. And this was holy ground. This was a place where God was meeting Moses. And we're told in the New Testament, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who's in you, whom you have from God, and that you're not your own? Your own body is holy ground. And that doesn't mean you can't wear shoes, but it does mean that you should take care what goes into your body, and for that which you use your body, and your body is holy. It's a meeting place of the Holy Spirit, and you should treat it as such, in a sexual manner, in a pure manner. You should treat your body as holy ground. Verse 6, he said also, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. He gets it, that God is holy, God is special. The Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who were in Egypt, and have given heed to their cry because of their taskmasters, for I am aware of their sufferings, so I have come down to deliver them from the power of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good land, a spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanite and the Hivite and the Amorite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite. God says, I'm going to deliver my people. Now behold, the cry of the sons of Israel has come to me. Furthermore, I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians are oppressing them. Therefore, come now, I will send you to Pharaoh. Here's where the rubber meets the road. Moses is going to be sent as God's spokesman, so that you may bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. Now God says, I'm going to send you. That's the call toward Moses. And Moses is going to respond with a number of excuses, 5 excuses. First of all, he's going to say, I'm not qualified, and then he'll say, look, I don't know enough, and then he'll say, they won't believe me, and he'll say, well, I can't speak, I'm not eloquent, and finally, he's just going to say, well, just send somebody else. It's a good idea, but can you send somebody else? And God's going to answer each one of these. We're going to see it in the rest of this chapter and on into the next chapter as well. He'll be answering each one of these. So we read, but God said to Moses, who am I? Here's the first excuse. I'm not qualified. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt? And God said, certainly I will be with you. You're not much, but I'm with you. And that constitutes a majority. And this shall be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you've brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain. Here's where God was meeting Moses, and eventually all of Israel is going to come to this same place where they will get the opportunity to meet God and to worship God as well. And so then Moses said to God, and this section is going to be key in this chapter. Then Moses said to God, behold, I'm going to the sons of Israel, and I'll say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. That's the instructions that he's been given. Now they may say to me, and here's the objection, what is his name? Now God had just introduced himself as the God of Abraham, Isaac, the God of Jacob, but there was no name there. And Moses says, look, I'm going to be your representative. I don't even know your name. They might say, what's his name? What am I going to say to them? And God said to Moses, and here's probably the key phrase in this entire chapter, where God says, I am who I am. Now that phrase, I am, sounds very much like the Hebrew name that we've already read, going all the way back to Genesis chapter 2. What we call Yahweh. It's not exactly, but it's close enough where it sounds like that. It's a play on words. And so God says, my name is the I am. I am who I am. Or I suppose we could translate that, because Hebrew tenses are a little bit, we could translate this, I will be who I will be. Either one works. But I'm going to leave it the way it is. I am who I am. And he said, notice God said to Moses, and he gives a name, and he said, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, where God had, Moses had said, what will I say? And God says, this is what you're going to say to them. The I am has sent me to you, because they're going to ask, what's his name? And that's my name, I am. God furthermore said to Moses, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, that's the Lord, the God of your fathers, and that's how he started this whole section off, the God of your fathers. And back in verse 14, the God of your fathers has sent me, and he sums it up again, saying the same thing, the Lord, the God of your fathers, and notice it's the Lord, when it says Lord in all capital letters, it's Yahweh, which sounds a lot like I am. Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. And this is my name forever, and this is my memorial name to all generations. I think what he's just done, I think he's just given us the meaning of that mysterious name, so mysterious that and so holy that the Jewish people, by and large, don't like to pronounce it. And I've already done it once or twice. I'll do it one more time. Yahweh. And we think that's how we pronounce it. We're not entirely sure. Because Hebrew is written, you have vowel points that were added later on. And it's been so long where it's been not pronounced that we're just using our best guess. But it's a pretty good guess. And so this is his name forever, his memorial name. His name that signifies, I am who I am. Now he goes on, go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, there's the name again, but our translation just puts it in all capital letters. Whenever you see either the word Lord or the word God in all capitals, it's that memorial name. The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I am indeed concerned about you and what has been done to you in Egypt. So I said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. They will pay heed to what you say, and you with the elders of Israel will come to the king of Egypt, and you will say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us, so now please let us go. And what they're called to do isn't say let us go all the way to Canaan, but they're called to ask, let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. That God is in the immediate. Now he tells them, eventually I'm going to set you free, but in the immediate, I'm calling you to do a 3 days journey into the wilderness. 3 days. We've seen that number, 3 days, on a number of occasions, and it continues to remind us of the one who died in our place and was buried for 3 days and then rose again. And there's a sense in which God's saying, I want you to go 3 days to a dry place, a dead place, and worship me. And after that, I'm going to do something that brings new life, but we're not there yet. Verse 19, but I know that the king of Egypt will not permit you to go, except under compulsion, except under force. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all my miracles, which I shall do in the midst of it. And after that, he'll let you go. In fact, he'll let you go not only for 3 days, but for good. I will grant this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall be that when you go, you will not go empty-handed, but every woman shall ask of her neighbor, and the woman who lives in her house, articles of silver and articles of gold and clothing, and you'll put them on your sons and daughters, and thus you will plunder the Egyptians. What they're going to do is they're going to get 400 years of back pay from the Egyptians. And so that when they go in the wilderness, they'll have those accoutrements that will be necessary to build the tabernacle. Now, when we come to Christ, we find that we have come before one who has, can I say it this way, who has plundered heaven for us. Not giving us wages that we deserve, but rather giving us the wages that he deserved, even as he bore the punishment that we deserved. And so we come to him and become co-heirs of a kingdom.